The massive silver ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning, blotting out the sun above major cities. People stopped in the streets, pointing upward at the impossible sight. Cars crashed as drivers forgot to watch the road. Children pressed their faces against school windows, while teachers tried to maintain calm. Admiral Vextal stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge. His blue-scaled hands gripped the command rail as he watched the primitive planet below. Earth looked so small and defenseless from up here. Just another backward world that would soon bow to the might of the Zephyrian Empire. "Status report," Vextal ordered, his voice echoing through the bridge. Commander Rathone, his second-in-command, touched several glowing panels with his clawed fingers. Numbers and images flashed across the holographic display between them. "Scans complete, Admiral. This species calls themselves humans. They have not even left their home planet properly." Vextal nodded slowly. This was always the same story. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had grown by finding worlds like this one. Worlds with people who still used chemical rockets and fought wars with metal bullets. People who had never seen the stars up close. "What about their weapons?" Vextal asked, though he already knew the answer would disappoint him. "Primitive nuclear devices, sir. Some chemical explosives. Nothing that could scratch our hull plating." Rathane's voice carried the same bored tone he used for every conquest. "They are still fighting each other in small conflicts across their planet. No unity, no real threat." The Admiral walked to the large window that showed Earth spinning slowly. Below, cities sparkled like tiny jewels in the darkness. Millions of lives went on down there, completely unaware that their entire future had just changed forever. "Begin standard protocols," Vextal commanded. "Position the fleet over their major population centers. Prepare for demonstration strikes." The silver ships moved into perfect formation, each one hanging over a different city, like a sword ready to fall. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Delhi. All the great human cities now lived in shadow. Rathan worked at his control station, following procedures that had never failed. Communication channels open, Admiral ready to transmit. The ultimatum. Vextal straightened his uniform and activated the recording system. His image would soon appear on every television, computer, and phone screen on Earth. "People of Earth," he began, his words automatically translated into hundreds of human languages. "You have been found by the Zephyrian Empire. Your world has been evaluated and judged primitive. You will surrender to our rule, or your species will be destroyed. You have 48 hours to respond." The message ended. Now came the waiting. This was always the worst part for Vextal, not because he felt sorry for the aliens below, but because it was boring. They always surrendered. Sometimes they tried to fight first, but it never lasted long. A few demonstration strikes would show them how hopeless resistance was. Down on Earth, chaos erupted. News channels showed the alien ships from every angle. Government leaders held emergency meetings. Religious groups declared it the end times. Military forces scrambled jets that could not even reach the alien vessels floating far above. But in a small research laboratory in Seoul, South Korea, something different was happening. Dr. Lee Haen had been working late when the ships arrived. He was a quantum physicist, someone who studied the smallest parts of matter and energy. While everyone else panicked, he was fascinated. His equipment had detected something amazing. The aliens were using quantum signals to communicate faster than light. "Minji, come look at this," he called to his colleague, Dr. Park Minji. She was a computer expert who understood networks and data systems better than anyone. Park Minji rushed over to his computer screen. Strange patterns of light danced across the display. "What am I looking at?" "Their communication system," Lee Yoon said, his eyes bright with excitement. "They are not just sending radio waves like we do. They are using quantum entanglement to send messages instantly across space." Park Minji frowned as she studied the data. "But that should be impossible. The energy requirements alone. That is what makes it so interesting, Lihian interrupted. If we can understand how they do it, we might be able to access their network. While the rest of the world prepared for war or surrender, these two scientists began working on something no one expected. They were not building weapons or hiding in bunkers. They were trying to understand alien technology above them. Admiral Vextel waited patiently for Earth's surrender message. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever surprised him. The pattern was always the same: fear, then desperate attacks, then surrender when they realized how outmatched they were. He had no idea that far below, human curiosity was about to change everything. The Zephyrians had brought their overwhelming technology to Earth, expecting to find primitive minds that would bow to superior force. Instead, they had found minds that looked at the impossible and asked, not how can we survive this, but how does this work? The countdown had begun, but the humans were writing a completely different ending than anyone expected. Coffee cups and empty food containers covered every surface in the underground laboratory. Dr. Li Heian rubbed his burning eyes and looked at the clock. 36 hours without sleep. His body ached, but his mind raced with possibilities that kept him awake better than any drug. The laboratory had become the most important place on Earth. Scientists from around the world worked at computer terminals, their faces lit by the glow of alien data streaming across their screens. Some spoke in hushed Korean, others in English, German, or Japanese, but they all shared the same desperate focus. I think I found something, Park Minji called out from her workstation. Her voice cracked from exhaustion, but excitement made her words sharp and clear. Li Hian rushed to her side, nearly tripping over cables that snaked across the floor. What do you see? Park Minji pointed at waves of light dancing on her monitor. Their communication system is more complex than we thought. They are not just sending simple messages between ships. Look at these patterns. The display showed branching lines of energy connecting dozens of points. It looked almost like a spider web made of light, stretching across impossible distances. Each ship connects to their home worlds instantly, Park Minji continued. But more than that, they connect to each other. Every message creates a temporary network that links their entire fleet. Kim Jun, the computer security expert, leaned over their shoulders. He had been pulled from his university office just 12 hours ago, when someone realized they needed the best hacker in South Korea. If it is a network, he said slowly, then it has the same weakness as any network, which is, Li Hun asked, though he was already starting to understand. Someone else can use it. Kim Jun smiled for the first time since the alien ships arrived. If we can figure out their communication protocols, we might be able to send our own messages through their system. Far above them, in the President's Emergency Command Center, a very different kind of planning was taking place. President Choi Soo stood before a table covered with reports and photographs. But these were not military plans or weapon specifications. Instead, she looked at images of paintings, books, musical scores, and movie files. Ma'am, her young aide said nervously, the generals are asking when we will begin evacuations. They say we should be moving people away from the cities. President Choi Soo shook her head. Captain Han Yonga has our military response under control. But I do not think guns and missiles will save us this time. The aide looked confused. Then what will? The president picked up a photograph showing children singing in a school choir. This will order every museum, every library, every university to begin digitizing their collections immediately. I want every song, every story, every piece of art that humanity has ever created turned into computer files. I do not understand, ma'am. How will art help us fight alien warships? Maybe it will not help us fight, President Choi Soo said quietly. Maybe it will help us not have to fight at all. High above Earth, Admiral Vextel paced the bridge of his flagship. Something was wrong. In 3,000 years of conquest, He had learned to read the signs of a doomed planet. First came panic, people running in the streets, governments making desperate speeches. Then came futile military preparations, armies gathering, weapons being moved, last-ditch defense plans. But Earth was doing none of these things. "Commander Rathan," he called to his second-in-command. "What are your sensors detecting from the planet's surface?" Rathan checked his instruments with growing confusion. "That is just it, sir. There are no major military movements, no evacuations, no signs of the usual panic. Then what are they doing? Unknown, sir. We are detecting massive increases in their data transmissions. They appear to be moving enormous amounts of information around their planet, but we cannot determine the purpose." Admiral Vextel felt a strange unease. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever responded this way. They either fought or surrendered. They did not, whatever this was. "Perhaps they are too primitive to understand the threat," Rathan suggested. "Some species need a demonstration before they grasp their situation." But Vextel was not convinced. His sensors showed that Earth's technology was more advanced than their initial scans suggested. These humans had created global communication networks, complex computer systems, and sophisticated data processing capabilities. They were not too primitive to understand danger. So why were they acting so strangely? Back in the Seoul laboratory, Li Huyan made a breakthrough that would change everything. His computer screen suddenly filled with clear, readable patterns instead of the chaotic noise they had been studying for hours. "I have it," he whispered, then louder. "I have it. I understand their quantum encryption." Every scientist in the room turned to look at him. Park Minji and Kim Jun rushed to his workstation. "Show us," Park Minji demanded. Lee Hyan's hands flew over his keyboard. "Their quantum network uses entangled particles to create instant connections across space. But the beautiful part is that once we understand the quantum signature, we can create our own entangled particles that will link to their network." Kim Jun understood immediately. "We can hijack their own communication system, not hijack," Lee Hyan corrected with a tired but determined smile. "We can share it. And I think I know exactly what we should share with them." The countdown to humanity's deadline continued, but down in the laboratory, 3 exhausted scientists were about to give the galaxy something it had never seen before. Lee Hyan's fingers trembled as he typed the final commands into his computer. 3 days of no sleep, endless coffee, and desperate work had led to this moment. Around him, the laboratory buzzed with nervous energy as scientists and technicians held their breath. "Connection established," he whispered, staring at his screen. In disbelief, "We are inside their network." Park Minji pressed close to his shoulder, watching streams of alien code flow past like a digital waterfall. The patterns were beautiful and strange, nothing like human computer language. "Can you control it?" Lee Hyan nodded slowly, a tired smile spreading across his face. "Not just control it. I can use their own quantum channels to send messages to every ship in their fleet at the same time. They built this network to coordinate their attacks, but now we can use it to coordinate something else entirely." Captain Han Young-A had been standing nearby, watching her military computers track the alien ships above Earth. She looked up from her tactical screens, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time in days. "You mean we can hack into their communications?" "Better than that," Kim Jun said, understanding Lee Hyan's plan immediately. "We can share their communications. We can send them something they will never expect. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Greenwich Mean Time, something incredible happened aboard every Zephyrian warship hanging in Earth's sky. Admiral Vextel stood on his bridge, preparing to give the order that would begin humanity's destruction. His weapons officer waited at the firing controls. His tactical displays showed Earth's major cities marked for bombardment. The 48-hour deadline had passed, and the humans had sent no surrender message. "Begin demonstration strikes," Vextal commanded. Target the city called New York first. Minimal damage, just enough to show them we are serious. But before his weapons officer could respond, something impossible happened. Music began playing through the ship's communication system. It started soft and gentle, a piano playing notes that seemed to dance in the air. Bach's Goldberg variations filled the bridge, the mathematical beauty of the composition somehow finding its way through quantum channels designed for military orders. "What is this?" Vextal demanded, but his crew stood frozen, listening to sounds they had never heard before. The music changed. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony thundered through the ship, its powerful melodies reaching into corners of Zephyrian minds that had never been touched by such beauty. Then came something completely different, the haunting sound of traditional Korean music, ancient songs that spoke of mountains and rivers and people longing for home. Commander Rathan stared at his weapons control panel in shock. Where targeting information should have appeared, he saw something that made him forget all about destruction. Van Gogh's Starry Night glowed on his screen, swirling blues and yellows that seemed to move with a life of their own. "Sir," he whispered, "there are images appearing on all our tactical displays. Across the fleet, every Zephyrian ship experienced the same miracle. Art filled their military screens, paintings from the Louvre in Paris, sculptures from ancient Greece, traditional Korean artwork from the Joseon dynasty, pictures that showed the beauty humans could create, not the weapons they could build." Then came the voices. Dr. Lee Hyan's voice echoed through every ship, translated into the Zephyrian language by their own communication systems. His words were simple but powerful. "We know you could destroy us. Your ships are stronger than anything we have. Your weapons could turn our cities to dust in minutes. But before you do, we wanted to share something with you. This is who we are. This is what you would be ending." More voices joined his. Children laughing on playgrounds, poets reading their work in dozens of human languages, musicians playing instruments from every corner of Earth, an old woman singing a lullaby to her grandchild, a jazz band from New Orleans making music that had never existed before that moment. Park Minji had included one song that was especially important to her, Ararang, an ancient Korean folk song about separation and hope. As the haunting melody played through the alien ships, she whispered a translation of the words, "Ararang, Ararang, crossing over Ararang Pass. The one who abandons me will not walk even 10 miles before their feet hurt." But the song was not about abandonment. It was about connection across impossible distances, about people who were separated but still loved each other, about hope that survived even when everything seemed lost. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Vextal watched his crew forget their duties entirely. They stood listening to human voices, reading poetry, watching human children play in parks, staring at human art that showed worlds of beauty they had never imagined. "Sir," Commander Raython said quietly, his voice filled with confusion, "the rules of engagement do not cover this situation." The Admiral had no answer. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to the threat of annihilation by sharing their culture. No doomed world had ever used their final hours to show their enemies not their weapons, but their art. "What are they trying to accomplish?" Vextal muttered. But even as he asked the question, he found himself listening to a human child singing a simple song about friendship. And for the first time in his military career, Admiral Vextal began to wonder if there might be something more important than victory. The ancient meeting hall on Nexus Prime had not seen such chaos in over 1,000 years. Holographic figures of alien leaders flickered and argued around the circular chamber, their voices overlapping in dozens of different languages. Emergency lights flashed red as urgent messages poured in from across the galaxy. Counselor Thexana of the Regelian Collective stood at her speaking podium, her 6 arms waving frantically as she tried to make sense of the reports. "This has never happened before," she declared, her voice rising above the noise. "In all our recorded history, No primitive species has ever responded to conquest by sending us their music and paintings, finished Counselor Morden, his crystal body glowing bright orange with confusion and anger. They somehow broke into our most protected communication systems, but instead of trying to hurt us, they sent us art. High Chancellor Zephyra, the oldest being in the Galactic Council, raised her hand for silence. For 200 years, she had led these meetings with calm wisdom. But today, even her ancient mind struggled to understand what was happening. Report, she commanded in her deep, steady voice. A junior council member, barely old enough to hold office, stepped forward, with shaking hands. The human cultural broadcasts did not stop with the Zephyrian fleet, Chancellor. They spread through our entire galactic communication network. Every world, every ship, every communication relay has received these gifts. The word gifts hung in the air like something strange and dangerous. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had existed for millions of years were trying to understand why a doomed species would use their final hours to share beauty instead of building weapons. Aboard the flagship Dominion's Edge, Admiral Vextel faced a problem no military academy had prepared him for. Half his crew had abandoned their posts. Instead of monitoring weapons systems and tactical displays, they gathered around screens showing human children singing, human artists painting, human musicians making sounds that somehow made hearts feel things they had no names for. Admiral, Sub-Admiral Kraith approached his commanding officer carefully. The younger Zephyrian's voice was uncertain, confused. The crew is asking questions. What kind of questions? Vextel demanded, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. They want to know why we destroy species that respond to threats by giving us gifts. They are asking if maybe there is a better way to deal with other civilizations. Admiral Vextel felt something cold and uncomfortable growing in his chest. Doubt. In 40 years of military service, he had never questioned the Empire's methods. Conquest was simply how the galaxy worked. The strong ruled the weak. It had always been this way. But now his own soldiers were watching human documentaries about families caring for each other. Human concerts where thousands of people came together just to hear beautiful music. Human art that showed impossible dreams, made real through creativity and hope. Sir, another officer called from across the bridge. We are receiving direct communications from individual humans. They are not government messages or military commands. They are ... personal letters. Vextel walked over to read the messages appearing on the communication screen. They were simple words from ordinary people. Hello. My name is Kim Minho. I am a teacher. I hope you like our music. Would you like to hear more? This is Lee So-young. I am 8 years old. I drew you a picture of my cat. Do you have cats on your world? My name is Park Genesio. I am a farmer. I grow rice to feed people. What do you grow on your planet? Message after message appeared, not pleas for mercy or threats of resistance, but simple human curiosity about the aliens who had come to destroy them. Back in the Soul Laboratory, Park Minji stared at her computer screen in amazement. Heian, look at this. We are getting thousands of responses from across their empire. Lee Hyun, exhausted but thrilled, leaned over her shoulder to read the incoming messages. They were not in human languages. The alien quantum network automatically translated everything. What is this sound you call music? How do you create these moving images called paintings? Why do you share these things with us when we came? To hurt you? More questions flooded in. Your species makes beautiful things. Do all humans create art? Can you teach us how? Why do you help each other instead of fighting? What is this thing you call love? Kim Jun laughed, a sound of pure joy and disbelief. We did not just hack their communication system. We made them curious about us. I think we accidentally broke their entire empire with a music playlist and an art exhibition. The truth of his words became clear within hours. Reports reached the Galactic Council from across Zephyrian space worlds that had been conquered centuries ago, were declaring independence. Zephyrian soldiers were refusing orders to attack other species. Some were even asking to visit the worlds they had once been sent to destroy, not as conquerors, but as guests. High Chancellor Zephyra read the reports with growing shock. The Zephyrian Empire is collapsing, she announced to the council. Their fleets are abandoning their posts. Their worlds are breaking away from imperial control. She paused, her ancient voice heavy with the weight of history changing before her eyes. Humanity has done something impossible. They have changed the fundamental rules of how galactic civilization works. For 3,000 years, we have believed that power comes from the ability to destroy. But these humans have shown us something different. They have shown us that real power might come from the ability to create, to share, to connect. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the silver ships first appeared in Earth's sky, and Li Haiyan could hardly believe how much the galaxy had changed. He stood in a room that once held weapons designed to destroy planets. Now it buzzed with the gentle hum of computers and the soft sounds of beings from different worlds working together. "Pass me that quantum resonator," Commander Raython said in perfect Korean, his translation device making his alien words sound natural and friendly. Li Hun smiled as he handed the device to his former enemy. Rathon had been one of the officers preparing to destroy Earth just months ago. Now he worked alongside Park Minji every day, building something they called cultural bridge technology. "How does it work exactly?" Li Haiyan asked, watching Rathon adjust the delicate equipment. "The quantum principles are the same as our old military networks," Rathon explained, his blue-scaled hands moving carefully over the controls. "But instead of sending attack orders and battle plans, we send music, stories, and art. Instead of connecting weapons systems, we connect hearts and minds." Park Minji looked up from her computer screen, excitement bright in her tired eyes. "We just established a new connection with a world in the Vega system. They want to learn how to make Korean kimchi. Apparently, they heard about fermented food in one of our cultural broadcasts and became fascinated." Li Hun laughed. 6 months ago, we were afraid they would destroy us. Now they want cooking lessons. The transformation had happened faster than anyone thought possible. The Zephyrian Empire had not been defeated in battle. It had simply dissolved. World after world had chosen to break free from imperial control. Not because they feared punishment, but because they had discovered something better than conquest. Cooperation. Admiral Vextall himself had shocked the galaxy by requesting to stay on Earth. The former military leader now worked as Earth's first interspecies cultural liaison, helping planets that had never known peace learn how to talk to each other instead of fight. Captain Han Younge walked into the laboratory carrying a thick folder of reports. She had been promoted to director of Earth's Cultural Defense Initiative, a job that would have been impossible to imagine before the aliens arrived. "The latest numbers," she announced with a grin. 17 different worlds have requested Korean language instruction programs. 23 want to learn about human music. And get this, 41 planets have asked for copies of our children's stories. "Children's stories?" Park Minji asked in surprise. "They say our fairy tales about kindness and friendship are completely different from anything in their cultures," Han Younge explained. "Many alien civilizations never developed the concept of stories, where the good characters win through helping others instead of fighting." Across the galaxy, something remarkable was happening. In what had once been the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime, President Choi Su stood before representatives from 200 different species. But these were not subjects bowing to an emperor. They were partners in a new kind of civilization. 6 months ago, your ships came to Earth expecting us to surrender or die, President Choi Su said, her words traveling instantly across space through quantum networks that now carried hope instead of threats. But we discovered something that changed everything. The strongest force in the universe is not the ability to destroy, it is the ability to understand each other. The alien representatives listened with attention that would have been impossible under the old empire. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years were learning to work together, sharing knowledge and culture instead of fighting over territory. Kim June had become the head of the Interspecies Communication Project, installing quantum cultural exchange points on worlds throughout the galaxy. Former enemies now shared music sessions across impossible distances. Scientists from different planets collaborated on research projects. Artists created works that combined the traditions of dozens of different species. In a small room, on what had once been the Zephyrian flagship, something beautiful was happening. A young Zephyrian child sat in front of a holographic display, her blue fingers carefully plucking the strings of a traditional Korean gaijim. The ancient instrument had been recreated using quantum technology so she could learn to play it. On the screen in front of her, a human child from Seoul sat with his own gaijim, patiently teaching her the finger positions for a simple melody. They could not breathe the same air or shake hands, but through the quantum link, they shared something more important: the joy of making music together. Lee Haeon watched this scene with wonder. "You know what I think our real victory was?" he said to Park Min-ji and Rathan. "What?" they asked together. "We refused to play by their rules. For 3,000 years, the galaxy believed that being powerful meant being able to destroy your enemies. But we showed them something different. We showed them that real power comes from making connections, not breaking them." Park Min-ji nodded, watching the two children laugh as they played their instruments in harmony across the vast emptiness of space. "We did not change just one war. We changed what it means to be strong." The galaxy was learning a new language, not words, but the universal language of curiosity, creativity, and kindness. And for the first time in thousands of years, the stars were filled not with the sound of weapons, but with music.